guys, welcome back to Part 2. Millard Fillmore, 13th President of the United States.
Very good. Welcome back. Part 2. Good job, Henry. Part 2 of Millard Fillmore, our 13th President of the United States. This is TJ here with Dead History. Of course, you just heard from my son, Henry. Say hi, Henry.
Hi.
And Part 1, of course, was Millard Fillmore entitled The American Louis Philippe. That's the Part 1. And then, of course, Part 2 here now of Millard Fillmore, The Accidental President. So here we go. Basically Millard Fillmore. So here we go. So as I was saying, we're going to just jump right in. Millard Fillmore, he got his political start actually as an anti-Mason. Fillmore was elected to the New York State legislature, as I said, in 1828 on the anti-Masonic ticket, which, as its name suggests, strongly opposed Freemasonry. So pretty interesting stuff there. He remained affiliated with that party, which at the time polled well in Western New York, upon winning election to the U.S. House of Representatives 4 years later, but he soon cut ties with it to join the Whig Party. So basically that was kind of the thing there. As a Whig, Fillmore served 3 terms in the House, but he lost a race for New York governor, and then, like I said, he became the New York comptroller, and then he received a surprise nomination to be Zachary Taylor's running mate in 1848 for the presidential election. Fillmore also, he was really kind of considered one of the 5 accidental presidents. With the Democrats split over the issue of slavery, some had left to form the anti-slavery Free Soil Party. And Zachary Taylor and Fillmore took the White House with 47% of the popular vote. During Fillmore's time as vice president, the Taylor administration largely left him out of the decision-making process. But on July 4th of 1850, Taylor came down with a stomach bug, of course, after attending the 4th of July celebration at the Washington Monument. Of course, he died. We know that. And then within days, Taylor was dead, and Fillmore had ascended to the presidency. The only other U.S. presidents that were never elected to office were, of course, John Tyler, Andrew Johnson, Chester Arthur, and Gerald Ford. So, interesting stuff there. He was never elected president, ever. So he just became president kind of on accident. So, of course, John Tyler was his accidency, but Millard Fillmore was definitely an accidental president. There's no doubt about it. Fillmore also, he did not have a vice president. Since the Constitution did not originally include a provision for replacing dead or departed vice presidents, the office has been vacant for about 38 of its 225 years. Fillmore, along with John Tyler, Andrew Johnson, and Chester Arthur, they had no second in command for the entirety of their terms. But this situation is obviously very unlikely to ever repeat itself, however, because of the 25th Amendment. The 25th Amendment was ratified in 1967, and that allows the president to appoint a vice president subject to the approval of the U.S. Congress. So, interesting stuff there. Now, Fillmore, unlike his successor, unlike the man who preceded him, Zachary Taylor was adamantly opposed to the Compromise of 1850. I mean, totally against it. But Millard Fillmore supported the Compromise of 1850. Fillmore thought that the Compromise of 1850, which was introduced by Henry Clay, was a key piece of legislation that would preserve the Union from sectional differences. However, this did not follow the policies of the deceased, of course, President Zachary Taylor. Taylor's cabinet members resigned in protest, and Fillmore was then able to fill his cabinet with more moderate members. Actually, Fillmore released a lot of those cabinet members. So, interesting stuff. We'll get into that in a minute. Fillmore, he did attempt to reduce tensions between the North and the South. Obviously, it didn't really work, but he did try to do this. Though personally he was opposed to slavery, Fillmore valued the preservation of the Union above all else. So as a result, he supported the so-called Compromise of 1850, a package of bills that allowed the newly formed territories of New Mexico and Utah to decide the slavery question for themselves. They admitted California as a free state, they banned the slave trade, but not slavery in Washington, D.C., and then they settled a Texas boundary dispute and authorized the use of federal officers to capture runaway slaves. The long agony is over, Fillmore wrote afterward. These several acts are not in all respects what I would have desired, yet I am rejoiced at their passage and trust they will restore harmony and peace to our distracted country. That was Fillmore's words. However, the compromise did not hold up, and of course the Civil War broke out in 1861. Fillmore also, he was a major proponent of the Fugitive Slave Act. The most odious part of the Compromise of 1850 for many anti-enslavement proponents was the Fugitive Slave Act. It was ridiculous. This required the government to help return self-liberated individuals to their enslavers. So basically, if a slave escaped and was on the run as a fugitive slave, the federal government basically would help, send bounty hunters and such out to capture these people and return them to their slave owners. Just terrible stuff. And Fillmore supported this act. He was obsessed with it. Even though he was personally opposed to enslavement, for some reason, he just was all for this Fugitive Slave Act. This cost him a lot of criticism, and it probably inevitably cost him re-election in 1852. What else can I tell you? Fillmore unsuccessfully ran as part of the Know Nothing Party in 1856. The Know Nothing Party was an anti-immigrant, anti-Catholic party. They nominated Fillmore to run for president in 1856. And in the election, Fillmore only won the electoral votes from the state of Maryland. He garnered 22% of the popular vote and was defeated by the man who won that election, James Buchanan. So interesting stuff there. What's some other stuff? Fillmore, he actually retired from national politics after 1856. After that loss in 1856, Fillmore did not return to the national stage, and instead he spent the rest of his life in public affairs in Buffalo, New York. He was active in the community projects such as the building of the city's first high school and a hospital. He supported the Union, but was still looked down upon for his support of the Fugitive Slave Act when President Lincoln was inevitably assassinated in 1865. What else here? Fillmore, this is interesting. He was once personally fought. He fought a fire at the Library of Congress. Millard Fillmore's father purportedly owned only 3 books: a Bible, a hymn book, and an almanac. But yet Fillmore became a bibliophile anyway. He was carrying a dictionary with him at all times in order to improve his vocabulary. Like I said, he was a very self-made man, very self-educated man, and he took that to heart. He knew that he came from a very poor, uneducated background, and he really tried to improve that throughout his life. But as president, him and his wife, they founded the first permanent White House library, and he reportedly raced to help fight a fire in December of 1851 at the Library of Congress, and then he signed a bill to fund the replacement of all the books that had been destroyed. So, pretty interesting little fact about Fillmore fighting a fire at the Library of Congress. Right, Henry? Yep. Fillmore the firefighter, right?
Fillmore the firefighter, the president.
Yeah, that's right. He was, of course, never nominated for a second term, as we said. The Whig Party did not even nominate him for a second term. They shunned him. I'll get into that in a minute. He lost really badly in his presidential election. So after leaving the White House, he returned to his law practice in Buffalo. Like I said, the lure of politics was too strong to keep him away. January of 1855, Fillmore effectively announced his candidacy for president as a member of, like I said, the anti-Catholic, anti-immigrant Know Nothing Party, writing a letter in which he lambasted the corrupting influence which the contest for the foreign vote is exciting upon our election. He then took off on an extended trip overseas before returning to campaign on a platform of keeping the Union intact. And obviously, as I said, that did not go well. He only won one state, Maryland, and only carried 22% of the popular vote. Millard Fillmore, he actually disagreed with a lot of Abraham Lincoln's policies. During the Civil War, Millard Fillmore supported the Union cause, but he expressed dismay at the emancipation of the slaves and the enlistment of black troops. He did not follow most Northern Whigs into the newly formed Republican Party, and he publicly opposed Abraham Lincoln's re-election bid in 1864. Upon defeating the rebel army, Fillmore asserted that the North should extend to the Confederacy, quote-unquote, every act of clemency and kindness in our power, end quote. So, unsurprisingly, he then backed Andrew Johnson's more mild approach to Reconstruction rather than that of the so-called radical Republicans. So, interesting stuff. The truth is, history really has not been very kind to Millard Fillmore. Almost every time modern historians rank the U.S. presidents in order of their greatness, so to speak, Fillmore's name always appears near the bottom of the list. Even the White House official website calls him an uninspiring. And in 1988, a Yale history professor quipped that to discuss Millard Fillmore is to overrate him. So that's pretty darn harsh. It really is. What else can I say about Fillmore? He was just an upstate New York politician. Millard Fillmore was he was quiet, he was unquestionably modest, and he was just unquestionably mediocre. He just really was. He was a self-made man. He was always living above his social status. He was always worried about figuring out, were people going to figure out that he was kind of a pretender, living above his means and his social status. He was immaculately dressed. He always was immaculately dressed because he felt that when you dress so well, that people would not doubt that you basically you belonged at the party, so to speak. So he always made sure he was very well dressed. And his poor background gave him a fixation on improvement. Once he was in the White House, he insisted on a new bathtub. He wanted a stove, and he basically wanted the modern equivalent of $58,000 for the first permanent White House library. He was always about that, I guess almost kind of like keeping up the Joneses, the appearances. He always wanted to look like he was much more sophisticated than he was. He was a big supporter, though, of the telegraph. The telegraph at the time was a stunning achievement of science, and Millard Fillmore did embrace it. But one thing he did not embrace, like I touched on earlier, was Zachary Taylor's cabinet. One of Fillmore's first actions was to take revenge on the men who Fillmore had thought convinced Zachary Taylor to reject the Compromise of 1850, which, of course, Millard Fillmore supported. Millard Fillmore was really just a deeply insecure man. He was, like I said, he was not well educated. He was very unsophisticated. Like most vice presidents, he mostly felt ignored, and he was ignored. So all of Zachary Taylor's cabinet, they either resigned or Fillmore fired them. He got rid of them. When it came to the Compromise of 1850, Fillmore just did not care. He wanted a compromise. He would have signed anything that they put in front of him. He signed the compromise basically believing that it would create the middle ground needed for the country to kind of put out the fire that was, or I should say the flames that were going to create the fire that would then turn into the Civil War. He thought it was just going to kind of take care of it. But obviously that didn't happen. It left slave owners and abolitionists furious. And really what happens is it alienated a lot of the Whig supporters from the North. They thought the Whig supporters from the North seemed to think that the Compromise of 1850 gave a lot of concessions to the South, and the South in turn thought that it gave a lot of concessions to the North. The fugitive slave law, like I touched on, that made Northerners and abolitionists appalled, furious. And Fillmore, he became obsessed with that fugitive slave law. He practically collapsed over it. It became the focal point of his entire presidency. So, and inevitably that's really what killed him, because for somebody who was supposedly against slavery, and was opposed to slavery, he sure as heck was all about that fugitive slave law, which really contradicts his views, in my opinion. So Fillmore was the last member of the Whig Party to ever hold the office of president. The Whigs were so fed up with him that they refused to nominate him for the re-election in 1852, so he wasn't even nominated by his own party. Really, the truth is, Millard Fillmore is a punchline today. But the reality is, if you took Millard Fillmore out of history, America would be a very different place now. Fillmore is kind of important because if Taylor had remained president, and if Zachary Taylor was president, Zachary Taylor probably would have refused to sign many of the pro-Southern measures of the Compromise of 1850. And even though we inevitably ended up in civil war, it may have actually happened even quicker, even faster than it did if Fillmore did not actually put the Compromise of 1850 into law, if he didn't sign it into law. So what I'm going to show you here now is the house of Millard Fillmore. This is actually in East Aurora, New York. Millard Fillmore built the house in 1826 for his bride, Abigail. It's one of only 10 National Historic Landmarks in Erie County, New York. Beside the White House, it is the only remaining house of the 13th president. This is the only structure that's still around that Fillmore lived in. The house was originally stood on Main Street in East Aurora near the Aurora Theater building. It stood in disrepair for many years until there was an artist, Margaret Evans Price, Mrs. Irving Price of Fisher Price Toys, believe it or not. She became enchanted with the little house and its history. She purchased it in 1930. She had it moved to its present location, and she remodeled it for her studio. Its present location is actually 24 Shearer Avenue in East Aurora, right around the corner from where it was on Main Street. So, pretty interesting stuff. It's actually a really cute, quaint little house. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to show you here the pictures of it and a little video from when I visited it. But this is the house in East Aurora, New York, where Millard Fillmore lived. Actually, let me get the exact dates for you guys, because that was definitely on one of the signs right outside the building here. So the dates that Fillmore lived here was, to be exact, See, be good if I had this, right? Here we go. Yep, from 1826 to 1830. This was their home from 1826 to 1830. Millard and Abigail Fillmore. So here you go. Here's their home. Take a look at this. Hey guys, TJ here with Dead History. And that behind me is actually the house, excuse me, I had something in my eye, of Millard Fillmore. I'm going to turn you guys around here. This is the house of Millard and Abigail Fillmore from 1826 to 1830. So pretty cool stuff. I'm actually going to take one of these little maps for myself. Obviously it is closed, but pretty cool stuff. A lot of snow here, so yeah, I am right near Buffalo, so here you go though. Pretty cool stuff. This is the home of the Fillmores. There you go. Obviously it's open at certain times. Fillmore House, National Historical Landmark. Pretty neat stuff. There you go. In 1825, Millard Fillmore, 13th president, helped build this house, to which he brought his bride Abigail, and in 1826 residing here until 1830. So pretty cool stuff. I guess there was an original Main Street house that they had. Here's a little look inside. Look on the back. Cool icicle hanging off. Flag. So there you go, guys. Millard Fillmore's house here in I believe this is East Aurora, New York. I believe that is where we are. Yep. East Aurora, New York. There you go. The Fillmore's house. And I'm glad that you guys checked it out with me. Thanks, guys. So there you go, the Millard Fillmore house where he lived for a few years in East Aurora, New York. Now what I'm going to show you is I'm actually going to show you in Buffalo, New York, right outside of City Hall, there's a statue of Millard Fillmore that's right in front of City Hall in Buffalo, New York. So here's a look at some pictures and a little video of that statue of the 13th President Millard Fillmore in Buffalo, New York. Take a look. Hey guys, TJ here, and I'm actually standing on the steps of City Hall here in Buffalo, New York. And behind me, that is a statue of the 13th President, Millard Fillmore. Let me flip you guys around here. So there you go. The 13th President of the United States, Millard Fillmore. Lawyer, educator, philanthropist, and statesman. And there he is, Millard Fillmore. Pretty cool. Pretty nice statue, actually. Really nice. So, it's just yes, it is snow flurrying here. I don't know if you can see that. It's erected by the state of New York to honor an illustrious citizen of Buffalo. E pluribus unum. And there we go. The 13th President of the United States, Millard Fillmore. Here on the steps of City Hall here in Buffalo, New York. There you go, guys. So there you go, the statue outside of the City Hall in Buffalo, New York of Millard Fillmore. Now we're going to show you where Millard Fillmore died at. That's right, where he died. This is actually called the Statler Towers today. It sits at the location where Fillmore died in downtown Buffalo. This is like right across the street from City Hall where that statue is. I'm actually going to read you something about it. It's pretty interesting. Millard Fillmore, location of his death. The home where Millard Fillmore died, which is located at 107 Delaware Avenue, has a long and interesting history. Years before there was any structure on the property, the land was owned by Albert H. Tracy, a New York congressman and state senator who had moved to the area to become a Unitarian parson. In 1831, the property was purchased by John Hollister, who built a home on the site in 1852. Hollister fell on hard times, and in 1858, he sold the home to former President Fillmore. For the next 16 years, Millard Fillmore enjoyed his retirement while remaining active in Buffalo civic events. He welcomed several noteworthy visitors to this home, including John Quincy Adams. His most famous house guest was actually the 16th President of the United States. Who's that?
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln, that's right, Henry, who arrived for lunch on Sunday, February 17th of 1861, when he was in Buffalo as part of a roundabout journey from Springfield to Washington, D.C. for Lincoln's very first inauguration. After Fillmore died, his sons combined the home structure with an adjacent home formerly owned by M.S. Hawley to create the Hotel Fillmore in 1881. 20 years later, in 1901, it was expanded and renamed the Castle Inn to take advantage of the popularity of the Pan American Exposition that opened that same year. The exposition was the incredibly popular World's Fair that was held in Buffalo, which at the time was the 8th most populous city in America. An advertisement in the Buffalo Courier read, 100 rooms have been added to the Tudor Gothic mansion, once the palatial home of President Millard Fillmore, and the character of the addition makes the name of the Castle Inn singularly appropriate. In 1919, the Castle Inn, along with the last remnants of the original Fillmore home, was demolished to make way for the Statler Hotel. Construction began in May of 1921 at a cost of $8 million. With 1,100 rooms, the hotel had more accommodations than all other Buffalo hotels combined. The grand opening for the new hotel was on May 19th of 1923, and the next year the Buffalo Historical Society placed a plaque on the building facing Niagara Square that read, "In his house on this site, Millard Fillmore, 13th President of the United States, resided from 1858 until his death here on March 8th of 1874. This tablet, erected in 1924 by the Buffalo Historical Society, of which he was a founder and the first president of from 1862 to 1867. So yes, what I'm about to show you pictures and a video of is Statler Towers. That is what sits there today. That was where this home was of Fillmore's. This is where he died at, the location he died. That plaque, because it looks like they're doing renovations on this building, is no longer there. I could not find it. I went all around the building and could not find that placard. But here you go. Millard Fillmore, 13th President. This is Statler Towers in Buffalo, New York, where he died. Take a look. Hey guys. So if you see that behind me, that huge, huge building, that's actually the Hotel Statler. I'm going to turn you. So the Hotel Statler. And this is actually the location where Millard Fillmore died. After his wife died and his daughter died, he actually married a very wealthy, I believe she was a widow, a wealthy woman, and there was a mansion that they lived in right here on these grounds where this Hotel Statler stands. That mansion was demolished, and I believe in 1920, I will check that, and if I'm wrong, I will put a blurb up on the screen, but I believe in 1920, this is when the Hotel Statler was built, and it's been here ever since. Now, the interesting thing about this is there used to be a plaque outside of the Hotel Statler that, told you that this is where Fillmore died, but it looks like they're doing renovations to it. And, yeah, so I don't see the plaque anymore, or if it's taken down, or if it's on another side. I'm going to look around some other sides of this, but this is where Fillmore did die. So give me a second here. So there you go, the death site of the 13th President of the United States.
Millard Fillmore.
There you go, Millard Fillmore. Good job. I almost got him that time, but he's too sharp for me. So last but not least, what you're seeing on your screen now, we're going to take a look at Millard Fillmore's gravesite. He is buried at the Forest Lawn Cemetery in Buffalo, New York. I will tell you, the Forest Lawn Cemetery is magnificent. It is beautiful. It is historic. It's old. It's big. It's just really an interesting place. Anybody that's ever visited, probably would agree. If you've never visited, you should go take a look, because it's really quite interesting. It's kind of got a. It's I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's one of my favorite cemeteries, believe it or not. Fillmore, he's appropriately located in Plot F, of course, F for Fillmore. It's a 30 by 40 foot area surrounded by an iron gate. And interesting, other notable graves are Reverend Shelton, and of course, funk music icon Rick Superfreak James is actually in the Forest Hill Cemetery. There's also some really cool stuff. The cemetery also has a very unusual motto at the entrance. The motto is, "The future is our past." The cemetery is located on Delaware Avenue in Buffalo, New York. And like I said, here it is. This is Millard Fillmore's gravesite. It's just kind of this tall obelisk monument. The flag's there. It's, of course, that iron gate that's around it. Family members of his are buried right next to him, his wife, all sorts of things there that you can see. I'll show you this video real quick, and then I'll show you some more pictures of Millard Fillmore's final resting place. He died on March 8th of 1874. He was 74 years old. Just kind of died of natural causes, old age, nothing major. And yep, he was the 12th vice president and only the second vice president to ever take over office when a sitting president died. So here you go. Take a look at the video and some photos of Millard Fillmore's gravesite at Forest Lawn Cemetery in Buffalo, New York. Here you go. Hey guys, TJ here, and that behind me is the gravesite of Millard Fillmore. I'm going to flip you guys around, of course. So here you go. This is where the 13th president, Millard Fillmore, is laid to rest. We will go inside here. I figured I've seen this before, of course, but I figured I'd bring you guys here and show you guys where Millard Fillmore is buried. So, here we go. I was open last time I was here. Interesting. Oh, here we go. This thing was stuck. That's why it was stuck. There we go. And there you go. Right there. Millard Fillmore. And there is Abigail, the First Lady, wife of Millard Fillmore. So there you go, guys. The gravesite of the 13th president, Millard Fillmore, here in Buffalo, New York. It looks like they put a wreath on his grave, yep. Probably for birthday or something to that effect. That's usually what they do. So, pretty cool stuff. Thought I'd show you guys. Thanks for checking it out. So there you have it, guys. A look at the life and the legacy of our 13th president, Millard Fillmore. I know Millard Fillmore, probably not one of the most exciting people, but I hope we did a good job showing you some of the sites, you know, where he was born, his house that he lived at, some fun little interesting facts, and of course, what we do here at Dead History better than anything, the grave sites, the final resting places of these historical figures. So, right, Henry?
Yep.
That's why we have the name Dead History, right?
Yep, because it's dead and it's history.
That's right, because it's dead and it's history. Very good. So there you go, the life and the legacy, 13th President of the United States, Millard Fillmore. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all the subscriptions, the comments, the questions, everything, right?
Yes, even the subscribes, definitely.
Oh, yeah, we're very happy about our subscriptions. Over 1,000 subscribers now. We can't thank you guys enough for the support. So there you go, Millard Fillmore. Next week, we're going to move on to our 14th President of the United States,
Franklin Pierce.
There you go, Franklin Pierce. That's right. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for stopping in, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.